Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Lake Cities podcast with Chris and Lucas. I am Lucas Pinkard, pastor at First Baptist Church, Lake Dallas. And here with me is the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Respis.
Hey, what's going on, y'all?
Antioch Christian Fellowship. Am I saying that right? I'm reading it off your shirt.
Man, listen, you read well. You read well, brother. That's
Thank you. I've been stealing other people's sermons for years. It's important that I'm able to read them. We have with us today a special guest of ours from Top Notch CEO. This is Dr. Stephie Althouse, the developer of a really cool program called Brilliance Extraction, which is one of the things I wanted to invite our listeners to learn about this afternoon. But she has this really cool, it's not a manifesto, it's a declaration of brilliance. And Dr. Althouse, if you could set the foundation of what you do with this declaration of brilliance, we would all be eternally grateful.
Wow. Thank you. So nice to be here with you. Thank you so much. Okay, here it goes. So the declaration of brilliance. Here it goes. Your life. You've learned so much. You've forgotten how much you've learned. Your expertise is second nature to you. It is you. Your life's work is your baby. You have nurtured and grown it in good times and in bad. It makes a difference. Future-proof it, scale it up, and protect it. Never assume that your knowledge is nothing and that others know it anyway. Your knowledge is brilliant. Even if you cannot patent, trademark, or copyright it, your brilliance is remarkable, even critical. Your expertise matters. Others will use it as building blocks for their future. Go forward. Create new ideas. Losing the brilliance in your brain is like a double death. Do not take your expertise, your passions, what makes you tick, to the grave. Share it now. Protect those you love by giving them what they need to succeed when you're not there. It's not just about money. Life is also about joy and service to others. Sharing your expertise and making it immortal creates all three. What is your brilliance?
I just want that played on a loop.
Man, listen, I'm telling you, man. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. That's awesome.
That is the most William Wallace speech we've ever had on this program right now. So, Dr. Althouse, you've started Top Notch CEO. I think the Brilliance Declaration is a great foundation for what we're going to be talking about today. You're also the author of 101 Quick Tips for High Talent Companies, which is proven to boost your business. If I could talk. I could also be a high talent if I could talk. And you wrote this with June Davidson. I have been reading this. I've gotten a lot of cool information about not just what you do as a company, but some great tips. And it's an awesome book. So we'll put a link to that and where our listeners can buy that. But talk to us about what Brilliance Extraction is.
Okay, so now that I'm done
really
blushing,
cool.
that will be in about 30 minutes from now. I can answer that. Brilliance Extraction is, in a nutshell, about extracting critical knowledge out of someone's brain and putting it into a system. So something that's intangible in someone's brain that others can't really use yet, right? Because it's just in someone's brain. And it's knowledge generally that you can't find anywhere. It's not in a textbook. It's not book knowledge we're talking about. It's knowledge that comes from many years of gathering expertise. And in fact, it's even knowledge that the person doesn't even realize anymore that they have. This is why the Declaration of Brilliance says, you've learned so much, and it also says you've forgotten how much you've learned. Because we get so good at what we do so many things automatically, it's unconscious to us, and that makes us into lousy trainers. Because, rather than giving people a trainee steps 1 through 10, we skip a few.
Right.
Because we don't even remember that they're part of what we do. So take that intangible knowledge and make it into a tangible knowledge asset. And now you can leverage it, you can use it create much more impact, make much greater difference with it, get much more reward for it, and it makes it immortal, which is the building blocks for the future, the Declaration of Brilliance talks about.
So who is Brilliance Extraction for? Like, is this for business people? Is this for athletes? Is this for, pastors, people that are in, what's the proper name for it? The multi-level marketing. Like my wife has all these friends that are trying to sell us essential oils. Who is Brilliance Extraction for, and who should be looking for this kind of thing?
Well, I think any person and any organization can look at this, and I invite them to look at this, because I submit that any person has brilliance. It's just expressly not just the stuff that you run to the patent office with,
right,
or the trademarking people, or something to copyright, but it's critical knowledge. And so what I actually do is I sit down with a person and we map the brilliance. That's the first step, brilliance mapping.
okay,
And then we go into brilliance extraction and then brilliance systemizing. So first, with brilliance mapping, you go into, okay, so what brilliance do you have? And that's sometimes really hard to tell by yourself. I mean, it's good to talk with someone who's not, someone else. So who's not so close to yourself, right?
Right.
I am too close to myself. Brilliance extraction as a system nearly didn't exist, except for the fact that a friend pointed out that this is what I do.
Oh, wow.
Actually.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that's what I do. Well, I mean, once it was pointed out to me, then yeah, I saw it. But they were telling me, yeah, that's what you do all the time.
Mm.
And then we said, well, what do we call this? And so that's how we came up with brilliance extraction. So anyway, that's mapping. It's what is it? Why does it matter? And who is it for? And you just asked me, who is this for? So it's really for everyone. If you think you have some brilliance, then it's for you. And if you don't think you have brilliance, then maybe talk with someone who can see what you can't.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, is that we oftentimes are blinded by our own viewpoint. We have a very warped perception of the person that we see in the mirror. And I know this is stuff that we've talked about in sermons before,
right,
but also it's the reality of a lot of people, especially high performers. You and I have been talking about the dangers of perfectionism, and I have been a little bit cursed by that. Like I do
Haven't
not.
we all?
Yeah, I don't often know where the line is where something is good enough, right? And no matter how many Malcolm Gladwell books I read, I still I don't feel like there is a threshold of that for me. I'm often pushed by others to just say, no, this is great, put it out, versus...
Yeah, what's the tipping point for perfection? It's
Right.
perfect enough.
Yeah, and so that's why oftentimes perfection and procrastination go hand in hand.
Yes.
So what is it that you see, especially in small business owners, where the big benefit of brilliance extraction comes into play? Because I know that there are, in the Lake Cities especially, we have a lot of small businesses. Why would somebody who's a small business owner or who's an entrepreneur that's working, maybe especially during this time, working out of their home, why would brilliance extraction benefit them?
Leverage.
Oh, that's a powerful word.
It is.
So, yeah, it's leverage. And see, I believe that your expertise should not be a nice set of handcuffs.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm a recovering PhD chemist, but I joke that there's no complete recovery possible, but it's like a 12-step program. I'm on step 9, and I'm probably going to stay there.
Stuck there.
At least she's already made amends.
Yeah,
That's good.
But yeah, but the point is, your expertise should be something of value to you and to others. But if you're basically managing your expertise and you're dishing it out here left and right, but you're so busy doing that, you don't have time to think of new things. And you might even burn out. Can you go on vacation? Or, I mean, not that we're traveling anywhere right now, but,
right.
can you do something else or think of something else? Can you think about things that keep you at the cutting edge, etc.? Can you keep being innovative and creative, or are you essentially managing what you already thought of? That's one of the things.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tripled companies' revenues within months, less than a year, using Brilliance Extraction and the leverage that results. So it's so important.
So from a business standpoint, would Brilliance Extraction, for example, help uncover other product streams, other marketable ideas? Is that it? So we kind of get in a rut in terms of this is what we do. This is, the only thing that we can provide. But as we maybe glean, unearth or discover this brilliance that you had that you didn't think had any value, what we in fact find is that it is valuable.
Exactly.
And so then we could create a product or a service out of that extracted brilliance. That's the idea?
That is part of the idea,
Okay.
yeah. So there's probably things that you pretty readily think of that if you taught it to someone else, you could delegate certain things that use up your time. You could delegate them and feel like they're going to get done right. They're going to, you're going to get over the hump with, in order for it to be done right, I have to do it.
Right.
Because you're going to run out of bandwidth real quick, and you probably sooner or later going to burn out. In the meantime, people might not want to hang around you because you're tired all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a very limiting way of going about that, right? If you think you have to do everything yourself. So Brilliance Extraction helps delegation.
Okay.
And helps free up bandwidth. And then that's just the beginning of the whole scaling up and growing process. And it frees up time. In fact, I've created this acronym. Let's see whether I can still get this all together.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, but
Right.
it's system. So the first S stands for sustainability.
Okay.
And then in terms of benefits of Brilliance Extraction. And then you have Y, which stands for yield. That symbolizes flexibility, gives you much more flexibility. And what's the next S? I'm blanking on right
Superhero.
now. Superhero. Yes.
Smart.
Yeah.
I'll think of that later.
Sure.
And then T is time, and E has to do with scaling up, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
scaling up. Yeah, duh. Anyway, and then T is time, and then E stands for exit options. How are you going to create a legacy? Do you want to create a legacy with your life's work being your baby? Do you want to just shut down your baby, liquidate it,
No.
make it go away? No. You want to pass it on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Make it keep living, growing, breathing. So that's the E, and then M is money. And so that means more income, means more profit, means more value in the business, means also, which goes back to E, you can actually create value in the business without you being there.
That sounds scary. No, I think that does. I think that sounds scary for a lot of business owners, because one of the things that, especially a small business or a business that is contingent upon a key man, right? Part of the beauty of it is that you're the person, whether you're the key man, the key woman, you're the person that is the key holder to the kingdom. Everything runs around you, and so it's stressful that you can't take a day off, you can't go take a vacation, but it's also one of those things where it provides a lot of job security,
right,
because if you're not there, then things don't function. But like you were talking about legacy, you can't pass that on, because once you're gone,
that's it.
All of your employees and everybody that worked under you, especially if it's a family business, is gone. So how do you convince those people that are kind of walking that very stressful line of, I can't take vacation, but I've made myself invaluable to my company, so it's got a stress and a security. How do you convince them that Brilliance Extraction, creating a system where other people can fill in for them, is not an opportunity to be ousted from their own organization.
That is the big fear, right?
Right.
So I'm going to answer this way. I tell them that there's really two ways of using / leveraging expertise. There's the old way. The old way has been around about probably as long as mankind has been around, which is that we learn something, we become an expert, and we become invaluable, indispensable. And that is the value of us as an expert.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we don't really want to share everything we know.
Right.
Because then we're not indispensable anymore.
Right.
And there's a great deal of fear around that. Oh, my job security is gone. I may get ousted. Why should they pay me the big bucks when they can, have someone who charges, I could get paid less, could do it, etc. But we're missing something here. I mean, the old model is it's like a leaky bucket of knowledge, of wisdom, of expertise, not textbook stuff. Anybody can read the textbook.
Yeah.
But it's a leaky bucket, brain drain. Very little leverage, very high risk in terms of sustainability, very low potential in terms of future opportunity for growth, etc. So meet the new model. The new model is where the value of the expert is not that you're indispensable. The value is that you're a learner, a creative, innovative. You pass it on not just to people, but into a system. With Brilliance Extraction is the method to do that. And then you have time available again to think about what's next. Think of new ideas. Think across disciplines where almost all breakthroughs lie. And make sure the organization doesn't turn into a dinosaur that goes extinct, because this is happening so fast now, faster than ever. We live in an era that some people call super change. In fact, there's a book by Bernie Dorman called Super Change.
Okay.
And it's the area where change all around us happens faster than ever. So the old model was always kind of not so good, but we can't afford it now.
Yeah.
The day is over. The years are over for that.
Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing for a lot of business owners to hear and begin to process, because I grew up. My grandfather started a family business. My dad, my uncles all worked for it at some point, and when we were kids, we aspired to it. But he held all the relationships. Everybody went there to go see. My granddad's name was Tom. Everybody went there to go see Tom, because not only did he know how to do all the work in the garage, it was a diesel repair shop, but he also had this great personality where he could do things up front. And it really, if he were to go away, it took 4 people to do his job. But the problem was that nobody knew how to do it.
Right.
And so even when he was on vacation, it turned into, well, we got to wait until Tom comes back. So then whenever he comes back, he's got this backlog of stuff that he's got to work on. Well, now, oftentimes that turns into, when somebody goes away, they don't get to enjoy that time away because their phone's blowing up the whole time.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. And then if you ever want to sell a business like that, now do you want to sell his head with it?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause there is, and I like the way you put it, there is no exit strategy at that point. In your book, 101 Quick Tips for High Talent Companies, I nailed it that time. You talk about how everybody is a CEO, and the CEO does not mean Chief Executive Officer, that it stands for commitment, excellence, and ownership. How do those ideas work, and can you unpack what that is for a regular, like, all right, I want to apply those 3 principles to my life? What would that look like?
Yeah. So I think the way I put it was actually commitment to excellence in ownership.
That is how you put it.
But
Did not nail that.
But
I mean, we gotta
close, very
highlight it.
close, very close. And so, yeah, you've got to be committed
Okay.
to excellence, which is not to be confused with perfection, because
Right.
perfection doesn't exist. We already talked about this earlier. But and in ownership, so take ownership of it, and that, of course, is a mantra and a philosophy that anyone can take on, regardless of whether they are the CEO or are anywhere else in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you take on the attitude of being top-notch, a top-notch CEO in the sense of commitment to excellence in ownership, anywhere in business and actually anywhere in life, it makes a profound difference.
Okay. And is that in profound in the sense that it will impact positively just every facet of this, whether it's the business, regardless of manufacturing or service, or is it, customer service, just every department, every facet of this organization will be impacted because whether at the top of the food chain or toward the bottom, everybody's committed to doing their absolute best and owning their function or their role on the team. Is that the idea?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, the brother book to this book is 101 Quick Tips for ESOP leaders, and ESOP stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. So these are, it's addressed to leaders of employee-owned companies. And really, everybody should be a leader. And it all starts with leadership of self and then of leadership of other people.
Lead like it matters, Chris.
Oh, that's it. Lead like it matters.
Well, think about it. Let's say, I like kayaking, and so sometimes I bring this up as a metaphor. A top-notch CEO is like a kayaker who, analyzes the river a bit and really takes charge and takes the paddle and you say, I want to go over here, and then you actually paddle there. And then, of course, you encounter some rocks here and there, some submerged branches you didn't see or anticipate, and you deal with them. But you're definitely not drifting. You set the intention.
Right.
And you gather the intelligence that you need, and you take action. So how that works for you as a metaphor.
That makes a lot of sense, because you never want to just be aimlessly wandering along. Everybody wants to feel like they had some control in getting to where they're going, whether that is, paddling a little bit and then coasting for a while, or whether it's completely fighting, a bunch of rapids like they do in the Olympics. I like the kayaking analogy. You were telling a story on the Mind Your Business podcast a few weeks ago about a home remodeler, or maybe a guy that did like bathtubs or something like that, where you were able to use the Brilliance Extraction model to completely change the way that they streamlined their business and really turned around what they were able to do. Can you tell us that story? Because I think it would be one that would kind of inspire people that are listening to our program.
Yeah, excellent. So imagine this was a bathtub refinishing business, and you wouldn't think that this is not rocket science. You wouldn't think of a business like this having outright brilliance. But this is a great example, because there's a lot of critical knowledge that was only in the founders and CEO's head. Mm. And he didn't realize really quite the gap between what was in his head and what his employees knew.
Okay.
That's one. So he had, however, it was not a mom and pop shop, because they had grown into 7 locations.
Oh, wow.
And in California.
Okay.
And so one of the locations, unfortunately, the key employees decided, why are we working for the man?
Right.
And they left and started competing business. Mm. And so the CEO had to resurrect that location and build everything up again. And this is where you find out, oops, now I gotta. So he came to me and he said, I need to hire a quality control person.
Okay.
That was the first one he talked to me about. And he asked me, do you think I should look for someone who has some experience with quality control? Probably not of bathtubs, but something that's sort of semi-similar.
Yeah.
Or should I find someone who has the ability to talk with the property managers that are the clients for this, because the bathtubs they refinish are mostly of properties,
okay,
apartment complexes.
Right.
And I said, well, let's call him Tim. So Tim, I said, let's think about, what does this job really involve? And so we found out that not only were there 2, but actually 4 different skill areas involved in this.
Okay.
And so we wrote a job description based on that. And then I said, so with this, we have a better, and that's a form of mild brilliance extraction, right? Because this was all in his head, but he had never written it down like this.
Gotcha.
And it didn't take very long. I mean, like an hour maybe.
Yeah.
And then from there, though, we focused on building a quality control training system.
Okay.
And even though that sounds involved,
Right.
it really wasn't so involved. Because what I like to do is think of your business like a car, and you want to upgrade the car. The only trouble is you don't have time to put the car in the shop. You need the car.
Right.
That's what I do. I upgrade the car while you're driving it, as crazy as that sounds. So here's how.
That'd be an awesome business model.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Exhibit never did that on Pimp My Ride.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. So car mechanics, listen up. Okay,
Yeah, that's
here I'm
it.
throwing out the challenge for you. But yeah, so I said, okay, Tim, how many different scenarios for quality control do we have? He thought about it. Okay, a few minutes later we said, okay, it's 6. It's this, and this, and this. Okay, cool. And I said, okay, Tim, do you have a GoPro camera? You're doing these inspections right now yourself because you don't have the person hired yet. So why can't you just film yourself doing it?
Mm.
And while you're at it, comment on what you're doing
Okay.
and send me the videos.
Got it.
So all he had to do was go find his GoPro camera and make sure it's charged. So maybe it took him 10 minutes.
Wow.
10 extra minutes,
That's not so bad.
That's
right? So then he sent me the videos, and then with the transcription, then I pulled out the main points, then that led to checklists, manuals, etc. Then we did some video editing and built a training system out of that. So now you can look, what are the things that are in common between the 6 scenarios? You can pull those out. Then I saw that there were some tips really that we should be giving to the technicians, because the quality control people come in after, right? So they see what the technicians could have done better. But that feedback loop hadn't really been done as well as it could be.
Okay.
So we created extra things. And so that's what an experienced brilliance extractor does, is you always find extra nuggets that you weren't maybe even looking for, and to pull this out. And also to realize, okay, here's a gap. Let's fill that gap. But if I had asked him to sit in front of his computer and write this down, no way, Jose. Would have never happened. He told me so.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have thought of, the different things that you see and comment on when you see them. But you only think of them when you see them, when it comes up. So let's say the faucet is dripping a little bit. Now, how well can you paint when the faucet is dripping? Well, then what are the tricks to deal with that, etc. And so he was like going into all of this stuff, or, how the stopper is a certain way or whatever. So he would not have thought of that sitting in front of his computer. But we all had it on tape, and then we were able to process it. And so that then triggered him thinking of all kinds of other things to do brilliance extraction on. In fact, he said, Steph, you made me into a brilliance extraction detective. I love
awesome.
it. Yeah, and he was just walking around like being a brilliance extraction detective everywhere. And he had initially gotten a little tired of his business. He got so reinvigorated with his business. He said, yeah, I still want to prepare my business for selling someday, but it ain't now because I'm loving it again. And I'm having so much fun training my people and really turning on that light bulb, and really bringing them to the next level after that, and just growing the company.
Yeah, it's fun to share what you've learned, and especially if you have information that you feel like is worth passing on.
Right.
It's exciting to share that information, but if you feel like you're beating your head against a wall whenever you're having to tell somebody the same thing over and over again, or that there's like not a good like you don't come up with the explanation. And I think a lot of times that's what business owners or people like in our positions, Chris, we have so much going on, or we have so many things that we're thinking about that we're like, we need you to go, shut this door.
Right.
Well, why? I don't need you to. You don't need to ask all those questions right now. Just close
the door.
Yeah, go close that door. I can't tell you because that's where the thermostat is, and then it's gonna, make the bill skyrocket, or that there's a weird return air loop or something that happens. I just need you to go close the door. Whereas, what Dr. Althouse is talking about is having those conversations and then taking all of not just the information that's in your brain from a standpoint of the systems and procedures, but why it needs to happen, and putting it down on paper. Because I don't know how many times I've sat down and somebody's been like, well, I need to know how you do this. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'll just type it out for you. And then I get 2 or 3 steps in, and I'm like, well, no, if they don't do this, then it's that. And then it's all over again. And eventually what happens is, because that procrastination goes hand in hand with that perfection piece, like, I'm never going to get it right. Just don't worry about it. I'll do it on Tuesday.
Right.
That's what it ends up being. And that puts not just the company itself, but also that key person in a bad position. So I think what you're doing is not only incredibly just smart for business people to get on board with, but also one of those things that if we started to do it, it does exactly what we want. We want to be freed up to continue to think. We want to be freed up to come up with new ideas, but we're scared that doing that might hinder us, and that seems very like an unrealistic or an unnecessary, a self-imposed sort of limitation that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs put them on themselves,
Yeah, and you can't fault them for that, because it's just the culture, and that's how we grew up, and this is the old model of using expertise and the even subconscious way that we think of what we need to do to remain viable as an expert and valued as an expert. So don't beat yourself over the head with that. I get it. I know why this is happening. And it's just time to do something better.
Yeah. I really like it because, this brilliance extraction from the business side is really working to create efficiencies. And coming out of an industry where we literally build our time, you can see just how much money would be saved internally, and then you can also see where revenues and profits, as you've stated, would be affected, because you have the right people doing the right stuff, and not, if you will, a higher per hour employee doing things that could be delegated to someone else, at a lower cost point. And so these efficiencies, not only memorializing this brilliance, so they can be capitalized, going on into the future. But you just see these efficiencies. It's incredible. I mean, I can't imagine why. Well, I understand why, but you can't really imagine why, small, medium-sized, large business would not want to, capitalize on this brilliance and this expertise. Like you said, you can't read it in the book, and it's very unique. Why would you not want to do it? It seems like something that would just, be beneficial in all aspects of your company, your business.
And especially because so many people start out their business with the intent, especially with so many tech startups now. The intent is to get vested, get a really high number for your evaluation, and then be able to sell it before anybody actually finds out whether or not you're worth that much.
Right.
And you can't do that if you don't leave people with a system of things to do. There's so many of these people that are in these tech companies. I think WeWork is probably, if you've heard that story, is probably one of the best ones. Is this guy completely oversold his company and what he was doing, and it was a $40 billion hit to the people that were vested into the company. It was this huge crash that affected all of the tech startups for a couple of years. And I wonder if let's say that it is the investment company. So whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, or if you're somebody who's a venture capitalist, like, this would just be a smart thing to do with the companies that you're investing in, is to say, you know what, we're going to insulate ourselves by making you partner with Dr. Althouse so that she can figure out, like, all right, he's telling us this. Do we have the systems in place to make this stuff really happen? Can he pull it off? All of this. So there's so many different angles that you can attack this from. And if we're or if we're listeners, how is it that we would get in touch with you so that we can start to have some Brilliance Extraction done?
Yeah, so cool. BrillianceExtraction.com is actually a great place to go, and there's a Contact Us page there. We have a Brilliance Extraction toolkit on that page as well. And Brilliance Extraction is a method of top-notch CEO. So you can also go to topnotchceo.com, and then if you're not tired of reading, you can also go to drstephie.com. That's drstephiE.com, and read it. That's sort of the hub where everything is linked.
It's linked to.
Yeah.
And we'll have, if you're driving, we've got all of those links in the description for this podcast. Dr. Althouse, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could spend a couple of hours here talking about it, because Chris and I are kind of just scratching the surface of our questions. So we'll have to have you back on. And if you guys have questions for Dr. Althouse or for us, make sure that you email us at the Lake Cities Podcast at gmail.com. We'll pass those along to her. And then the next time we have Dr. Althouse on, we'll answer some of y'all's questions with her.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. That was really a blast. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
And Chris.
Hey.
Lead Like It Matters. If you guys don't know, Chris has his own podcast called The Chris Respis Show.
Oh, yeah.
I know he's going to get on to me now.
Absolutely.
But you do need to check it out. The Lead Like It Matters thing is something that he came up with and that I have stolen multiple times this week. So check out The Chris Respis Show wherever you get your podcasts as well. This is the Lake Cities Podcast with Chris and Lucas, and we'll see you guys next week.
Chris and Lucas want to thank you for listening to the Lake Cities Podcast, a service provided by FBC Lake Dallas and Antioch Christian Fellowship. If you have a topic you would like for Chris and Lucas to discuss, email them at thelakecitiespodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you give us a review and click on the subscribe button to get the latest episodes each week.